Great. Thank you all so much for coming today. I really appreciate you taking the time on a gorgeous Friday morning. My goal is to get us out of here before noon, so I don't think that'll be a problem. We've got a pretty short agenda. So just for purposes of the recording, we're going to call everything to order, and then Amy's going to list off our commissioners who are attending, and then also our honored guests. So shall we get started? Great.
I have a couple more people coming in, so I just
Yeah,
want to give
so
them
we'll
like a
wait just
minute.
another minute. Okay, we'll wait just
Yeah.
another minute. Oh, great, Rep Wallen could come.
There we go. I even have
You're
sound and visual.
Excellent. Excellent. We have anybody else in the waiting room, Amy?
Nope, that's
Okay.
it.
Let's get started then. So my name is Valerie Sasaki. I'm an attorney in Portland, Oregon, and it's my honor to chair the Law Commission. And what we're going to do today is we're going to call this meeting to order, and then Amy is going to list off the commissioners that are in attendance and then the interested guests that we have. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on this sunny Friday in July, late July. Hard to believe it's almost August. And so, yes, I call this meeting to order. Amy, could you please read the list of attendees? Apparently, the Zoom does not record things in the way that I see the Zoom presenting things. So,
Good morning, everyone. We're going to start with the commission members. So first, I'm going to go with Sandy Patrick, who is a dean at Lewis and Clark. She's our replacement for John Perry, and we're thrilled to have her. This is her
welcome.
first meeting. Then Judge Legason is here, Krista Obald-Eshelman, Lisa Udland, Justice Duncan, Kristen Bell, professor from U of O, Representative Kim Wallen, and John DiLorenzo. And then I see Jeff Dobbins is here, but his picture is off. So those are our commission members here today. Thank you all for joining us. And then let's see if I can do this skipping through.
Amy, actually,
Oh,
before we get to our other guests, since we're talking about sort of people who are more affiliated with the commission, why don't we ask our two clerks to introduce themselves?
okay.
Tara,
Kara,
you
do you
want
want
to
to
start
go?
us
Oh, okay.
Was that my turn?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Goldbarb. I am an upcoming 2L at UO. And in addition to working with OLC this summer, I'm also working at the circuit court, the Lane County Circuit Court as an extern. And yes, I'm excited to be here. My interests in law range from legislative and municipal work to also the intersection of law and communications.
And then I think that's my turn. I'm Gabriel Hansen. I'm also going to be a 2L in the fall. My interests are policy, and I'm doing some really interesting law and estate work, but public policy is one of my interests. Before I started law school, I was on the policy team at the Washington State Attorney General's office for about 2 years.
Great. It looks like we had Representative Krebs join us, so welcome. Great, thank you. Sorry for interrupting you, Amy. Go ahead.
All right. And then for the non-OLC folks, we have Jim Nass, who is the former appellate commissioner at OJD and was a member of the Direct Criminal Appeals and the Municipal and Justice Courts Work Group. Judge Britton, who is a municipal court judge in Beaverton and is part of the Municipal and Justice Courts Appeals Work Group. And then Brian Brock, who is with ODAA, and Patrick Singh, who's with the judges the Municipal and Justice Court judges as well. So I think that's it for everybody.
Great. So I think the order that we're going to do things this today is we're going to talk about the one proposal that we do have for a work group that would be starting relatively soon. And then we'll talk with this group about potential future projects that have either been approved or we're working on the proposal so that this group knows sort of what's coming down the pike, and we can, if you're interested, we can loop you into those early discussions as well. My goal for program committee is really that we be as inclusive as possible. And so our proposals are as fully fleshed out as we can get them to be, to give the commissioners the most information possible to move forward with the vote. So Amy, do you want to talk about the Muni and Justice Courts proposal that we have? And then please save any discussion comments about this until after she walks through the bullet points of the proposal that we currently have, because I understand there's some additional discussion folks want to have about things that we should add maybe to that list.
So I think most of you know that we had a work group that started in 2020, and Krista and Justice Duncan were the co-chairs of that Municipal and Justice Courts Appeals Work Group. We completed a bill for the 2025 session, and that passed.
Congratulations.
Which is great news. But one of the things that came up during the conversations in the fall of 2024 were that there were some issues that, quite frankly, we just didn't have time to fully address before we needed to pre-session file the bill. So for those of you who have not read every single page of the report, we listed in the report 5 or 6 different topics where folks still had questions or wanted to continue the conversation. And the work group suggested that this project go into another iteration so that we could address those questions. And part of that was timing, but also part of it was, do we have the best people in the room for this part of the conversation? And so,
And I will say too that there's precedent for this within the Law Commission. The probate modernization work group had a couple of different iterations as they looked at different aspects of the probate process. So you know, we're happy to keep supporting this. I think it's a great discussion that we need to be having. And sorry for interrupting. So do you want to walk through the couple of bullet points that we know that are identified?
yeah, so the proposal, which is on the Law Commission's website, includes limitations on appeals from municipal offense convictions, whether violations appealed from the local court to the circuit court and then to the Court of Appeals should proceed under ORS Chapter 19 or ORS Chapter 138. Undertakings for forcible entry and detainer, treatment of records of abolished local courts, the efficacy and service requirements on district attorneys because they are not involved in all the cases, the options for local courts to become courts of record, and then also if there's anything that needed to be cleaned up or addressed from 2460 where there was an unintended consequence or something needed to be tweaked. So that was what was included in the report.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I think it's efficiency and service requirements.
Excuse me, I misspoke.
That's okay. So that's the proposal that we have. And Amy and her team have done a great job of summarizing sort of where we are. What I would ask from this group is an up or down vote on a proposal to move forward with the Municipal and Justice Courts work group. But to the extent that there are other things that work group should be looking at or considering, I would love to hear that from you. And I know that a lot of the folks on this call are much more experienced in this area than I am or that Amy is. And so we really value your perspective and participation in this. So I'm going to open the floor for discussion on the topics. Who wants to go first? Rep Wallen?
Okay, so I thought I just heard you say we should take it up or down vote and then also discuss other.
No. I think we're fine adding topics to
Okay.
the list if that's something that makes sense. And then I think once we have the list of topics to be discussed by the work group, then that will allow the full commission to have here's what the programs committee talked about as ideas for that work group to discuss. And it may be that the work group discussions lead to other questions or resolve issues. I mean, it's really part of the process.
Right.
So I think the more questions that we can pose, the better, because I think that will help the work group sort of structure their conversations.
Okay. Well, I do have one thing
Okay.
that came to my attention. It's not anything that has ever hit my radar other than the conversation I had with League of Oregon Cities. And they were working on, through their organization, a bill that would address some aspects of municipal court and justice court judges, because there's not a requirement that they be lawyers. And so they're looking, among other things, and because that group isn't a group of lawyers, they were not necessarily, they had ideas about how they wanted to address oversight of those judges that were different from my ideas. But what I wouldn't want to see is them going through a whole work group process themselves, coming up with some kind of what they proposed oversight group for the municipal court judges. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that to this group's attention so that we could work, even if all that means is one conversation with League of Oregon Cities, just to let them know, to get their ideas, let them know what we're working on. I just didn't want to do a parallel process.
Yeah, that's a great point. Does anybody have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I have a thought on it. Hello, everybody. John DiLorenzo. Jim Nass, great to see you. I haven't seen you in.
Good to see you, John.
Yeah. So I think we ought to add to the charge of and maybe it's just implicit in their charge, but I'd like to add to the charge to the work group to take a look at the statute that basically prohibits the city of Portland from having a municipal court due to its size, and talk about whether there are advantages to Portland being able to have a municipal court to relieve the district attorney's office of some of the prosecutorial burdens that might be necessary if, for instance, the city decided to enforce its time, place, and manner in a camping ordinance or things like that. I can see some real advantages to the city attorney's office doing some of those things that, do not really involve jail, but would have other sanctions and the types of I call them sanctions, but really they would be helpful solutions to help turn people's lives around, that sort of thing. And I'm just thinking that we might want to talk about whether there'd be more flexibility for the city to do some of its own work. I don't know how to better articulate it than that, but maybe allowing the city of Portland to have some relief from that prohibition.
Yeah, and I think some of these ideas are really great, and we'll add them to the list.
Yeah.
Some of them are probably going to be policy decisions that the legislature is going to have to make that we don't want to, supersede, but I think it's worthwhile to have the discussion in the work group and then perhaps present any perspectives that people may have on these issues where they sort of go into these policy areas.
Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else have any comments, thoughts they want to share? Oh, Justice Duncan.
Thank you, Valerie. I like the idea of this group possibly exploring some issues related to justice and municipal courts beyond what is coming out of this group, but I think we should be mindful that the issues that Amy identified that are coming out of this group are all appeal focused. So they're focused on when a case goes from a justice or municipal court to either the circuit court or the Court of Appeals if it's a court of record. And so if we expand the topics to cover things like, should Portland have a court, or what are the requirements that might require, certainly I imagine a core group of the people who are participating with appellates, with an appellate focus would also participate in that, but there might be some necessary reconfiguring if we expand the scope to something beyond the appeals.
Sure. I think that's a really good point. And it may be that this becomes like probate modernization, where we have successive work groups that look at different aspects of things, right? Um, we don't want to burn people out on trying to do too many things all at once either. So, um, any other thoughts that folks have, or discussion on the points that have already been raised? No? Oh, yes, Mr. Ness.
Yes, I when the work group was wrapping up its work, getting ready to have this bill get in for this past session, one of the topics that we touched on but weren't able to really delve into completely was the issue of when a defendant is convicted and appeals, whether and to what extent a judge, whether the trial court or the appellate court, may stay enforcement of that judgment pending appeal. Basically, all we did was restated whatever power judges have now. That stays the same. And I think it's in chapter 138. The legislature a number of years ago actually laid out in pretty detailed fashion who has the authority to grant a stay and the criteria for the judges to grant a stay. And I was thinking that we probably should make that applicable to stays from other courts too, but we just ran out of time to thoroughly talk that through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, no, that's good. And that also falls within what Justice Duncan was saying as far as appellate scope of discussion. Okay. Any other additions or discussions to the list? Great. So
Sorry,
yes.
Valerie, I just want to make sure that I understand sort of what the current actual scope of the work group is.
Yep.
So are we still living with just the description on the scope of the work group that's in the memo that Amy and her team put together? Or is there a desire to sort of explicitly add in some of the other points that we've just talked about? I just want to make sure I'm clear on what that was.
Yeah, my expectation is that the points that we've already talked about would be added to the list of things that the work group could explore, or could figure out a plan for exploring. And I think that it allows the full commission to see that, there are other questions that are interesting in this space, and that we may be having follow-up discussions and follow-up legislative proposals that break these down into discrete, manageable aliquots.
Great, thank you.
Great. Okay, so let's take a vote on whether to move this proposal forward to the full commission on August 8th, full commission meeting on August 8th. So I move that we do move this proposal forward with the additions that folks have added just now, and that Gabe and Kara and Amy are taking great notes on, because nobody can read my handwriting. So, as we've established. So all in favor?
Right.
Any opposed? Great, motion passes. One of the other things that I think the commission will want to know as we look at this proposal and as we talk more about the proposal in this meeting is if there are folks who are interested and able to chair the work group on this. We demanded an awful lot from Justice Duncan and Krista with this last go round. And so I don't want them to feel that they need to chair the work group in order to participate, because I think they both have really valuable perspectives that if they're interested in being a part of the work group, we can incorporate. But is there anybody on this call who is interested in chairing the work group? And if not, you may get an email, or if you have ideas about who would be good about chairing the work group, I would ask that you reach out to Amy with any ideas. Thoughts? Oh, don't speak up all at once. Okay, well, we will be following up with this group and also the other folks who were serving on the work group to try and get the organizational structure and what makes sense just as far as keeping everybody rowing in the same direction aspect of things. Great, so that was the only thing we really had to vote on, but I did ask Amy to prepare just an overview of the other projects that we have in the hopper right now and some of the things that we're thinking about, so that if you are particularly interested in a proposal, or serving on a work group, you can reach out to Amy to just let her know. So Amy, turning it over to you.
Great. So we have a few things going on. As some of you know, we have electronic wills, which started this spring. And that group is next meeting at the end of August. We took a month off for post-session vacations. Then we also have next 2 weeks on August 8th, we're going to be voting on the partition of heirs property proposal. This was the proposal that you all discussed back in December. And then we were going to vote on it in April, and that didn't happen. So now it's coming back again. Valerie will be the chair of that work group, and Susan Gary, former commissioner for the Law Commission, is going to be the reporter. And I've been doing outreach to folks about getting work group members on that. If anyone has any thoughts on or suggestions on people who might be interested or groups that might be interested, I'd love to hear that.
Amy, can I interrupt for just a sec? The thing about the Partition of Heirs Property Act and the e-wills bills are that they were approved by the commission prior to the pandemic, but they basically became inactive during the pandemic. And so we're just getting the commission to reauthorize them to make sure that we're all on the same page that these are important to move forward with. Thank you, Amy.
Yep. The next one, estate planning one that has came up out of a bill, Senate Bill 15, which went through the legislature this past session. It was amended pretty heavily in the House. And during that conversation, there was some discussion about the Law Commission taking a look at the issues in Senate Bill 15, which had to do with the simple estate affidavit. I've talked to Representative Krupp about that, and I've also talked to some of the lawyers that were involved in those conversations down in Salem. And so we are kind of exploring how there's kind of a couple different ways of thinking about this, and whether it's tied to the simple estate affidavit process. If you look at a bigger probate process like Washington's non-intervention or the Uniform Probate Code. So we have folks kind of chatting, not internally because they're volunteers, but kind of having small group conversations about that. And the plan is for them to come up with a proposal on how to address these questions. And that proposal would be, if things move the way I think they're going to go, I think that would be proposal would show up at a December program commission meeting, a program committee meeting, excuse me.
And a lot of these things are potential to the soonest that they would be introduced as bills is for the 27 session, because our ability to introduce things in the short session is much more limited.
And yeah, I would not expect something like this conversation about the simple estates to start until after the short session. So, and then we have a couple things for criminal law, juvenile law. The first one is that Professor Bell reached out about a proposal that the Law Commission did back in 2015, which is HB 2367. It took the Uniform Collateral Consequences of Conviction Act, which is a Uniform Law Commission Act, and applied it to Oregon. The bill was introduced and made it through the House and then went to Ways and Means, where it did not pass and come out of Ways and Means. And Professor Bell has expressed some interest in it, so we have been doing some kind of digging around in the background and trying to get our hands around what was happened 10 years ago now, and kind of where we are with that. So we'll continue to talk about that. Professor Bell and I are meeting next week, I think. And I just wanted to flag that that was out there. And then the last one was I met with Representative Krupp a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned some interest in some juvenile law issues. I'm not familiar, we haven't really had a chance to talk in detail. I'm supposed to talk with Judiciary Councils hopefully in August, and I'll keep you updated on that. So that's what I have for potential projects that are kind of in the hopper or we're exploring right now.
Yeah, and there is an outstanding proposal from the business law section to do the same process with the Corporate Act that was done with the LLC Act. But I've asked them for lawyers who might be interested in participating on the work group with no response. So until we have people who are actually willing to show up to a work group meeting, I think we're probably going to table that proposal. The proposals about collateral consequences and the juvenile law discussion, I think are really good examples of people who are close to the commission having great ideas about things the commission could help look at. And so to the extent that any of you have great ideas that we can incorporate into a proposal or have a discussion about who would be the right people to have this conversation with, what would that look like, we would really welcome those suggestions and thoughts. You know, we really want to make this serve Oregonians and make Oregon law better and more efficient. So that's, I think, what I've got. Is there anything else that folks would like to discuss before we adjourn? Fantastic. I like a short, efficient meeting. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Amy, Gabe, and Kara, can you stay on the call? But I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.